Well, thank you. Yeah, so, my bio states, my name is Amanda. I've worked in technology communications for over 10 years. I've worked on both the agency and in-house side, beginning at Edelman, moving over to Citrix, and then Ogilvy, where I served as vice president. Currently, I hold a role at AWS, which is an Amazon company, still based in Centennial. Analyst relations, which is what I do, and just so you guys know, it at a high level involves working with industry analysts, and these analysts operate much like financial analysts. They make buy and sell recommendations based on their view of the market. Only we're talking IT products and services, not financial investments. So my job is to make sure that they are saying really great things about AWS services. So with that context setting, let's talk about reviving, or better yet, fast-tracking your career as a woman. Next slide, or you can keep going. One more slide, please. Oh yeah, this is more about me. Work at AWS, live in Colorado, have 2 kids, they're crazy. That's life. Okay, so women in the workforce. I'm biased, but we rock, I think. This woman rocks, and politics aside, we all have a lot to learn about her sense of ambition. Throughout my career, personally, the colleagues who have most influenced my path have been women. So, darn right, we deserve a seat at the table. As a woman, we face serious headwinds in the professional world. I mean, we get pregnant. I can't think of a single more significant headwind in a woman's professional development and advancement. Having had 2 kids, I can confirm it is near impossible to maintain status quo at work. When you're pregnant, you are tired and queasy and bloated and irritable, and that is on a good day. That's not even taking into consideration maternity leave and what that looks like as you are basically temporarily or not exiting the workforce. And if and when you come back, the kids are still very much around. Maybe you are still breastfeeding and having to pump at work. Maybe your kiddo gets sick. They will probably still need dinner at some point. Generally, you're on tap to keep them alive, no matter how involved your partner may be. So bottom line, momming is tough, and working mom life is really tough. For a while, I found myself spontaneously what I would call hacking together my work and personal life, and I was decidedly not crushing it. What you have to understand, though, is this cycle, this feeling of being less than, whether or not you have been pregnant and endured that motion at work. This is all normal, right? All of us walk through these highs and lows at work, and all of us have moments of feeling like a total failure. And, whether or not this is you that I'm describing, I think it's safe to say that women in the professional world do best when we feel like we are competent, when we have it all together. Next slide. Yeah, so I've just peppered in a lot of RBG quotes. I think they're great. But I think, bottom line here is that to achieve, you have to contribute. To revive your career, to fast track your career, you have to be a contributor. You have to embrace leadership, even as an individual contributor. If you're a team of one, how are you finding ways to better your surroundings and to better your community? But for many of us, the question becomes, how or where do I contribute? What attributes do I need to adopt to get back on the path or expedite my path to leadership? If you're here today, you clearly have this sense of ambition, but most of us operate without a framework, which is not super helpful if you want to thrive or, better yet, lead professionally. Next slide. So I love this. At Amazon, we live and breathe by this set of 14 leadership principles. These are not new hire gimmicks, nor are they optional. These are the standards by which every Amazonian is supposed to adhere to in order to keep, in Jeff Bezos' words, making history. Bezos considers these leadership principles essential to innovation, and we hear their mention in nearly every single meeting or community forum. But for me, who has experienced a good degree of career tumult, these principles have been especially important to how I value myself, my team, and my work product. They've really helped me embrace my boss's call to action to be the CEO of the business I work within. But there are a few in particular I think that every leader must master. Next slide. Okay, ownership. So the reason I wanted to talk to this topic, just some real talk for everybody. In 2015, I endured the most defining moment of my career. I was placed on a performance improvement plan. For anyone who's not totally sure of what this entails, it is not good. It's basically the precursor to performance-related firing. I sat down and had a hard conversation with my boss about the areas my performance wasn't meeting standards. And I resented some of the feedback. I felt it was unfair, if not outright wrong, and it seemed as if my professional world had effectively turned against me. But the reality was I was very passionlessly going through the motions. I was, I would say, doing the bare minimum to check boxes. I was treating my clients as if they were an inconvenience in my day versus a partner. I was operating on a totally transactional level. I deferred most account management, which was my job at the time, to others. And when it came down to it, in the toughest professional conversation I've ever had, I had very little ground to stand on. Sobering moment. Our professional work product does not shine if we don't clean it and obsess over the final output. In the wake of my career parole, we'll call it, I dug deep to revitalize that sense of ownership that I had utterly abandoned. This wasn't easy because I found that I fundamentally didn't like the work I was doing, but honestly, I faked it until I made it. I feigned obsession with the PR accounts I was on until one day I had rebuilt the trust and rapport I'd lost. I had to claw my way back to professional life by not just pouring myself into the quality of my work, but finding new ways to improve myself, which ultimately resulted in a very welcome career pivot. I owned my weakness. I turned from PR to AR, analyst relations, an area in which I felt strong, and I built a business around it. I built a practice that didn't exist before. And let me be clear, this was out of sheer desperation to not lose my job, but put into that position, that place of overwhelming stress, I identified what I was good at and the mechanisms I could build to better the community around me. And because of that move, I found myself back on track within a year and was promoted to VP. And after that, secured my position at Amazon. Next slide. Hiring and developing the best. I think, it was so great to hear this message echoed in the last panel of those four really just amazing women who talked about the community you build around you. We keep coming back to this theme of bettering the community you exist in, and there is no clearer manifestation of that than hiring and developing those around you to be their very best selves too. When we foster talent, when we nurture creativity, it's, Laszlo Bock's concept of psychological safety. And if you don't know what this is, look it up immediately, especially if you're a manager. When we embrace the nurturing and the fostering of talent and creativity, we breed confidence in our own ability to lead. We show others. We can bring others along in our path to excellence. Candidly, some of the most toxic work environments I've been a part of have featured distrust and competitiveness and condescension. And tell me, in what world do we do our best work, our best anything, when we don't feel supported by those around us? That saying, rising tides lifts all ships. We must look deep to understand how we can influence that rising tide. On this note, I would strongly suggest if you can take the Strengths Finder test, highly recommend, as it helps you to understand the superpowers you bring to professional and personal environments. It doesn't identify your weaknesses. It is all about your strengths and your superpowers, and I love it. Next slide. Earning trust. I think we also heard this in the panel, and I think it's great to have it reiterated. The way you operate in business matters. The relationships you build matter. The trust you earn matters. Earning trust empowers you to use your good judgment. It allows you to think outside the box. It opens doors within organizations that would ordinarily be closed or worse, invisible. Earning trust is not about working 16-hour days and weekends or micromanaging your team. Earning trust means showing your weaknesses. If there is one good thing about today's remote work environment, it's that we understand each other's humanity a bit better. We see the kids in back of Zoom calls and the home workspace our colleagues frantically pull together to function on a daily basis. We see more of their humanity, and we can be honest with ourselves. We are humans who want the best for ourselves, but to get there, we need those around us to see transparency, honesty, and decency, even in and especially in business. So many times I've seen leaders falter here. They think bravado and aggression or condescension are the only way to make themselves stand apart from others. But this is false. The only thing that type of behavior actually accomplishes is making those around you feel uneasy. And as we talked about before, if others around you feel uneasy, they are not delivering their best work product. Soon enough, those patterns become really apparent to those around you. Next slide. So those are the three leadership principles that I encourage you to get very familiar with. All of this is online. Just Google Amazon leadership principles and you'll be able to find more detail here. But there is one closing piece that I do want to leave you with. And it's not necessarily an Amazon leadership principle. Next slide. Writing. I am painfully aware I am not talking to all communications individuals or frankly women who write much for work at all. But I will tell you, my product team's vice president is a very, very senior engineer within the organization. He codes and develops products based in code for a living. He is the epitome of a computer geek. But if you can't write well, you can't work for him. He uses writing as his critical measure of another person's professional aptitude and comments on other people's writing regularly. And I don't think that this is unique to him. I think that this is something as a culture we have come to embrace pretty far and wide. Next slide. It works out well for me at Amazon. I will just be honest, because we are a document-heavy culture. PowerPoints are not used at all. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but we're very peculiar at Amazon. Most of our meetings, the beginning 10 to 15 minutes, are spent in silence reading a thoughtful dissertation prepared by someone else. these are what we consider our single sources of truth. Writing is considered the paramount skill, whether you work in a fulfillment center, as part of the Amazon Prime Video team, if you're part of the Amazon.com consumer-facing website, or at a data center site. You are expected to be able to compellingly articulate your thoughts and to share that with others so decisions can be made. And you know what? The good news is for being here, you are a rational, ambitious woman. And there is a way that you can, the way that you think and rationalize matters to those around you. The single best way to work through and communicate your thought process to others is through the written word. Writing is an art form, and if you can master it, you will go far. Next slide. So just a little bit more, around Jeff Bezos's approach to writing for and within Amazon. I do highly encourage you to go ahead and Google narrative culture. When I was interviewing for Amazon, it was scary. It was scary to think that there was such an emphasis placed on writing, which is frankly not something that most of us do in a professional setting. A lot of us are about the bulleted lists and working in Excel and PowerPoint, and these are all great tools, but having to think and be thoughtful about that thinking is a highly underrated skill. And I suggest you do some research around what Jeff's philosophy is where narrative culture is concerned. Next slide. That's it. That's all I've got for now in terms of, revising and hopefully fast-tracking your careers, but maybe I'll have more to say in a few years. If you have any questions at all, hopefully not employment at Amazon related, find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to be in touch.
Well, thank you very much. Great presentation. I like the way you did it, and I like the images on it. It was really good. I do have some questions for you, and they're not work related in the sense of getting a job at Amazon. But I do have a couple of attendees asking questions here. So the first one is from Megan. She says, "Can we get more information about the box of safety and strength finder tests?" So she wants to know where she could get that.
Sure. What's the best way to follow up with everybody on stuff like that?
Well, you can reply to one of the emails that you've exchanged with us, and you can put that in there, and I can make sure it gets into the membership area. Then everybody can access it. I think that's the easiest way, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'll send that over. What I will say is Laszlo Bach, he used to be HR at Google, and he wrote a book called Work Rules. And within that book and within a couple of other articles and blogs that he's been featured in, he talks about this concept of psychological safety. And like I said, it's basically when the team feels a sense of cohesion and that creativity and unique thinking are fostered, and you're not at risk for taking risks. StrengthsFinder, I don't know who the author of that is. I'll have to do some digging on that one. But if you Google StrengthsFinder quiz, you should be able to find some resources there. But I will also send that to Shelley too.
Thank you so much for that. And then the next, and I will give the audience a chance to ask a live question. On the slide before this, when you were talking about the narrative culture, I have a lot of clicks there asking you to expand on that. At least seven who were like, "Can you please expand on the narrative culture?"
Sure. Yes. So like I said, no PowerPoints at Amazon. This was a very foreign exercise to pull slides together. I'll be honest with you. We write what are called narratives. So for instance, my 2020 plan when I first started was a 6-page long document, and there are no bullets allowed. There's, you were expected to form complete and cohesive sentences, and people are expected to read it. So the process of narrative development is you come in with a central thesis, as you would in any sort of essay, and have your supporting points, the resources you'll need. Basically, it's not much different from a process standpoint than building a deck. But instead of, Jeff's point of view is that there is so much thinking lost when you leave phrases or bullets or worse, images like I did on slides. It leaves a lot up to your reader to piece together. So he wants the weight of, those kinds of conversations to be on the instigator, the writer, to adequately inform your audience. Hopefully that helps a little bit. There's a lot of literature online about our narrative culture too. So definitely search around.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's very interesting. I'll be doing a little bit of Googling this evening on that one. Yeah. Definitely. So we had Stephanie say it's the Clifton Strength Finder. I believe that may be, yes. Okay. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks for finding that.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. And Linda asked, can you tell you pivoted in your career? You told us about the low point and how you took ownership, but how did you promote yourself to pivot to AWS and any of the other moves you made?
Yeah, I would say from probably like a technical skill standpoint, it's a really nuanced pivot, and those within communications are probably closer to it. But what I want to focus on instead is my mentality toward that pivot. I felt like I was falling flat working in an environment in public relations where it is constant demand for, highly creative thinking. PR people are so creative. They're constantly generating pitchable ideas on behalf of their clients, synthesizing daily trends with, what organizations want and care to talk about. That for me wasn't a fit. That's just not, my brain didn't operate at warp speed, the way it needed to be successful in that role. What my brain does really well is analyze, is plan, is organize, and that is a huge piece of what analyst relations is. So rather than focusing on like my specific, shift in roles, I would encourage you to, if you feel like you're struggling in your career for whatever reason, we all go through ebbs and flows, encourage you to really dig deep and figure out what those superpowers are, what you feel not just good at, but passionate about. And I know that's like such an overused piece of advice, but it is true. If you are passionate about your work, you will do better. You'll want to be better. And so that's how I'd encourage anybody to start, reshaping their career if you're just feeling kind of stalled out.
Absolutely. It's great advice. You can find passion in your current job, I think, and you can look elsewhere. There's opportunities everywhere if you look for them. But that's my opinion. It's that, and that's just kind of how I think about it. It's because I think our passions get dulled out after a while. So we need some sort of change along the way, or, inspiration like you've just mentioned, Amanda. So that was great. Would anybody like to ask a live question? I know that you've all typed out your questions and comments, but if you'd like to ask a live question, it's *6 on the keypad, and you can ask that question directly. Just give them a couple of seconds. Sometimes it takes, and right when I normally say, okay, we don't have any live questions, somebody somebody comes on. So if you have a live question, you can ask that by hitting *6. And that will take you off of mute. Okay. I guess we don't have any live questions. They probably had just wrote them out, what we already went over. But thank you so much for doing this presentation. It was amazing.